You ever wake up on the wrong side of the bed? Don't want to be touched, looked at, or even spoken to? Every blue moon, that happens to me. I find myself flustered, grumpy, and just in a plain old bad mood. And you know what? 99% of the time, I have no earthly idea why. The handful of times that it's happened, I've replayed the prior day's events in my mind, trying to identify the trigger that set me off, and it seems I always come up with a goose egg. Nada. Zilch. Nothing. Now, I must admit, those first few times it happened, I felt perplexed by the mystery of it all. But as time has passed, I've learned to deal with it in an alternative way. Although I haven't mastered how to impact the onset of the feeling, I have learned how not to reside there. I try to pay close attention to myself since I'm with me all the time and I don't care for bad company. And when I notice myself turning a shade I'm not too fond of, I hop in Gussie and I find me some place to be that makes me happy. I remember one of the last times that happened to me. I decided to go over and visit my niece Angel. I had never been to her new place and I had only talked to her roommate via the phone, so I figured this would be the perfect time for a stopover. I searched for and found the voicemail where she had left me her contact info. I jotted it down on a sticky note, and honey, Gussie and I were in the wind. Not only was I looking forward to spending some quality time with my angel, I was secretly hoping she was in one of her baking moods, 'cause let me tell you, that young lady's hands are anointed for making sweet treats. Woo wee! I can already smell her ooey gooey chocolate chewy cookies, and I hadn't even made it there yet. Sorry. Sorry for my tangent. Let me get back to the story. I arrived to this beautiful newly built community surrounded by a river of cooling water. Once I parked, I sat in my car for a moment and took in all the beauty as I thought about how proud I was of her and all of her accomplishments. I quietly thanked God for angels, especially the one I had the privilege of calling my niece. I gathered my items and headed to her apartment. As soon as I knocked on the door, it flung open, and the young lady on the other side was not my angel, and she didn't seem too happy to see me. Although the scorn on her face was burning a hole in my forehead, I smiled politely and asked if my angel was there. After a court, "No, wrong apartment," she slammed the door in my face. Well, I'll be. Can you imagine how outdone I was? I was outdone to the point where I almost resurrected my old self so I could give that young lady a piece of my mind. But I decided to be the bigger person. There was no way I was going to let the devil steal my joy. No way. Not today. So I reached inside my purse for my phone, only to find out that it was dead. So I headed back to my car to charge it up a little so I could replay my niece's message to ensure that I hadn't jotted down her info incorrectly. You're not gonna believe what happened next. Or maybe you will, because I was near disbelief myself. I got in the car, turned the key, and it didn't start. Surely I must be dreaming. I rubbed the steering wheel and I even whispered a few sweet nothings to Gussie, and still she wouldn't even turn over. What in the world was going on? My only reason for coming out of the house today was to dispose of my bad mood, but it seems that things were not working in my favor. Okay, I decided I'm not going to let this get to me. I had to do something, and there was only one thing that I could think of. You got it. I had to go back and knock on Miss Slam-A-Lot's door to see if she'd let me use her phone to call Clarence. Well, there's nothing between us but air and opportunity, and I had decided to take both of them up on their offer. Here goes nothing, I thought to myself as I raised my hand to knock on her door again. As she opened it up this time, she seemed a little less frustrated, but she was noticeably bothered just the same. I introduced myself, told her of my dilemma, and asked for permission to use her phone. Surprisingly enough, she agreed. As I was waiting for Clarence to pick up, I caught a different glimpse of her in that moment. I could tell there was something weighing heavy on her, but I decided I wasn't going to poke my nose where it didn't belong. Finally, Clarence answered, which helped to distract me from staring at the young lady. After I explained everything to him, he provided me some instructions on what I needed to do to get Gussie back up and running. As I was getting off the call with Clarence, I noticed that the young lady was sobbing in her lap, overcome by emotion. I moved in close to her, and I said, Honey, are you okay? I said that to her, but she didn't respond. Okay, Lord, I'm going to need your help on this one. So slow and steady, I sat down beside her and I gently began to pat her back. And I whispered to her, no matter what it is, honey, God still loves you. And she abruptly held her head up and just glared at me. Let me say this. If looks could kill, you could have buried me that very day. She sharply responded, Oh, yeah? Well, he has a mighty funny way of showing it. Okay. That didn't quite go as I had anticipated, but I decided I wasn't going to back down. She obviously needed to hear what I was being guided to say. So I replied gingerly, Well, sometimes it just may be our perception because of us not understanding how he works. But it doesn't change his love for us. Nope, not one iota. Let's just say she was not in favor of the words that were coming out of my mouth. She questioned how God could love her when she had just gotten fired from her job and could now potentially lose her housing and her children. My goodness, my heart broke for her in that moment. I gazed at her for a minute and I decided to ask her a question that I had hoped would help her to start to see her situation from a different perspective. Hopefully, you don't mind me asking, dear, but that job that just released you, did you pick it or did God? She paused and looked at me as if I had four heads. I finally had her attention, and I could tell the anger was beginning to subside. Thank you, Jesus. I could tell by the look on her face that she wasn't quite sure what I meant by my question, so I decided to pose it a little differently for clarity. What I mean is, did you pray for his will or did you proceed with your own? As she flopped down in the chair and began profusely rubbing her forehead, I already knew her answer. We've all been there, right? Picking and choosing things and paper on our own without consulting with the Father until after things go awry, right? Right? Oh, you don't have to agree with me because I just high-five myself. Anywho, I could see her about to sink lower in her situation, so I decided to encourage her. Here's what I told her. It's okay, honey. We've all done it, but you're actually in a really good spot. You are positioned for opportunity, a God opportunity. You see, now that you're not distracted by that job anymore, you have a chance to hear what God would have you to do instead of just doing what you're able to do. I mean, anybody could do that. Now, I got kind of tickled when I said that, but I noticed that I was laughing alone, so I nipped it in the bud really quickly and proceeded by asking her, have you ever talked to God about what he'd have you to do with your life? And wouldn't you know, she shared an amazing vision that the Lord had given her some time back. It was about starting a counseling center called Restoration House. I mean, she was able to articulate even the most intricate of details about the physical facility, and she told me how she had numerous dreams about various encounters with some of the clients who found their healing there. I was simply in awe as she shared her story with me. But I must admit, I was also a little confused. With the joy and passion that she spoke with in regard to her evident assignment in life, I didn't quite comprehend why she was so saddened and angered about being fired from her job. You know, I had to ask her, right? Sure you did. Here's what she told me in an almost frantic type tone. Because I don't have the finances I need yet, and I've not been able to find the building yet. And what about my kids? I need a steady source of income so that I'm able to properly take care of my children. to provide for them with shelter and food. I can't afford to transition just yet, but I'm working towards it. Aha! There was the missing piece of the pie. Now I understand. She was afraid of stepping out on faith. Sound familiar? Oh, sure it does. We get like that too, right? We've been given clear instructions. We've encountered God ordained connections. And we've received confirmation after confirmation after confirmation. Yet, we continue to ask God if we should do a thing, or we ask Him to give us another sign that we should pursue, or we ask if He would send just one more confirmation so that we know for sure that it's Him. Hello? Y'all are quiet out there. Did you need me to repeat it again for the people in the back? Oh my goodness, we can be something else. And I just imagine the Father sometimes finds us comical when it comes to our old fickle nature. Well, after talking more, I came to find out the root of her apprehension. She had failed before. She had suffered before. And she fell into a deep depression which resulted in her losing custody of her children. And she lost her marriage. She felt defeated. And she didn't want to experience that place of pain ever again. But here's the thing. If we aren't failing at something, there's a good chance that we are not attempting to do or pursue anything outside of our comfort zone. We can't afford to be prisoners of our past. Every single day we are afforded new mercies, new opportunities. And if we desire to get to our next, we must take full advantage of our daily clean slate. We must put our faith in high gear because it's impossible to please the Father otherwise. I took the opportunity to remind the young lady about God's ability and faithfulness to restore. I'm a witness because I'm a walking example of how He can reconcile you back to Him after a bout with promiscuity and adultery and alcoholism. Listen. Here's the bottom line. If it's for us, there is nothing that anybody can do about it. You know what I've found to be true over the years? God desires the best for us. He will connect us with the right people, and He will provide us with abundant resources to carry out the assignment that He has purposed for us. And He has never intended for us to do this thing alone. That's why iron sharpens iron. He desires for us to walk in and carry out the very thing that He has created us to do. Each of us has been fearfully and wonderfully made in the Father's image, uniquely designed with specialized gifting to build up His kingdom. All of us, no exclusions. But we have to know that and believe that for ourselves. Here's a truth that we can hold on to. The way has already been paved. It's narrow and it's not broad. It's tight, but oh honey, it's right in his sight. Tiffany, that's the young lady's name, and we spent hours together that day. I prayed with her, and we even mapped out her vision on this big bulletin board type thing she had. She was thrilled to pieces to have something tangible to hold on to that represented what the Father had spoken to her. We laughed and we cried that day. We baked and we ate good that day. We prayed for strategy that day, for fear to be scattered, and for power, love, and a sound mind to arise in her in a fresh way. That day sure ended up better than it started. That day turned out to be much more than I could have ever imagined. And that day, I met the perfect stranger. What a beautiful and encouraging story from Vicky. Hebrews 13 verses 1 through 3 says, "Let brotherly love continue. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. Remember them that are in bonds, as bound with them, and them which suffer adversity, as being yourselves also in the body." The beautiful thing about the body is that we are all related, and the head knows just when we need to be connected. We mean so much to the Father that he would even place a stranger in our path if they have what we need in a particular moment. Vicky's encounter made me think of one of the most important decisions we can make on a daily basis. We can choose to be happy and make others around us feel the same. This option is always within our grasps. It's just a matter of our perspective. As we continue to journey through the bounty of life, may we be encouraged to and intentional about stepping outside of our normality and connecting with other humanity. Link up with someone today that is outside of your circle. You never know how they may change your life forever, even if it's a perfect stranger.